In today's video, I would like to discuss Minnesota's recent primary election. When it comes to Republicans, the candidates were Lisa Demuth, Mike Lindell, Kendall Qualls. The Democrats had longtime senator of the state, Amy Klobuchar. Demuth won the Republican primary by 43%, 179,000 votes. She had quite the competition here with the other two, Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell is the CEO of MyPillow. He is Trump endorsed for his governor's race here in Minnesota this election. Recently, Lindell has been under controversy for his 6-month amnesty proposal in Minnesota. Lindell, the Trump-endorsed Republican candidate for Minnesota governor, drew sharp criticism Wednesday after proposing a 6-month amnesty period that would allow illegal immigrants with no other criminal history to register for non-expiring conditional work visas. Lindell says, "I'd like the whole United States to do this, but let's say I did it here in Minnesota. Yeah, that would be a great idea," Lindell said in a Tuesday interview. 6 months, all the illegal immigrants would have to get what's going to be called a conditional work visa. Now, this, I believe, did not suit well with Republican voters of Minnesota. I've been seeing a lot of people dropping their support for Lindell after he made those comments. A lot of rural Minnesota are red counties in previous presidential elections, minus the Arrowhead. I was actually really surprised that Lindell did not become the party's nominee. I'm personally not favorable of him, but I know he gained popularity pretty quickly being endorsed by Donald Trump, and I really thought that that would have boosted his momentum in this race. Now, Lisa Demuth, who won the election for the Republican primaries, she is currently the Minnesota Speaker of the House. I'm really surprised she was able to gain as much momentum as she did. Not a lot of people really knew who she was before this race, despite her being the House Speaker. But a lot of people are saying that Lisa Demuth is a rhino. Demuth has a terrible voting record, usually favoring anti-liberty measures. She's big on anti-immigration. A big issue for Minnesota elections currently, what our candidates are going to do to stop all the fraud that they've all been letting happen for the last however long. Now, these people have been sitting in their positions for at least a minimum of 5 years. And it wasn't until this election cycle that they started bringing up the issue of all this fraud. Gerrymandering to voters, of course. Even the Democrats are saying the same lines as wanting to stop fraud, yet they're a big culprit in the reason why all this fraud is happening. Demo says fraud prevention has become one of the defining issues of her campaign. She accuses Minnesota Democrats of failing to prevent large-scale fraud in the state programs and has proposed creating a nonpartisan office of Inspector General with broader powers to investigate government fraud. She also campaigned on public safety, education, energy costs, business regulation, and taxes. In February 2025, Demuth made Minnesota political history when she became the first black person and first Republican woman to serve as Speaker of the Minnesota House. She defeated Democratic Representative Melissa Hortman. in a 67 to 65 vote. She was the only Democrat in the state to vote. She voted no on allowing illegal immigrants access to free health care. The only Democrat to vote no. And then shortly after, she is gunned down at her home. Demuth took her seat, and now she's running for governor. Now, Amy Klobuchar has been a senator of this state for a long time. So we have two women running for the governor's race, which either way will be making history for Minnesota as we've never had a female governor before. So a lot of people are paying attention to this governor's race. Now, who is Amy Klobuchar? Let's dive into that. Amy Klobuchar has won the Democratic nomination for governor of Minnesota as she continues her bid to replace outgoing Governor Tim Walz. Tim Walz, I'm sure you know who he is, former VP candidate of Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Walz has actually dropped out of his position as governor with the ongoing massive fraud scandal in Minnesota. Klobuchar is Minnesota's senior U.S. Senator and a former Democratic presidential candidate. A failed candidate, might I add. She's basically a career politician at this point. She won 89%. Like I said, she had no competition here. Now, being a career politician, Amy Klobuchar has a long history of supporting the Somali fraud causes in Minnesota. And she has been at the center of national media attention as news of widespread fraud in government programs has finally come to light. Klobuchar was first elected in 2006. Klobuchar has consistently won re-election to the Senate by wide margins. She often touts herself as one of the most bipartisan members of that chamber and frequently references the number of bills she has passed into law. More Somalis live in Minnesota than any other state in the nation. Somalis first came to Minnesota in the 1990s as refugees from the Somali Civil War. Somalia has remained a war-torn, terror-filled disaster ever since. They shouldn't be a war-torn disaster because we're giving them billions of dollars. The Somali community in Minnesota is comprised of tens of thousands of individuals, although the exact number is not unknown because half of them are undocumented. In her time as U.S. Senate, Klobuchar has often courted the Somali community. Somalis living in Minnesota have sent unknown millions to Somalia via the remittance process. During her time as Senator, Klobuchar has tried to ensure that the Somali community in Minnesota can send money to Somalia. In 2012, Keith Ellison reported that Klobuchar was part of a meeting with a U.S. Treasury official to ensure Somali remittances kept flowing. Basically, throughout her entire career, she has lobbied and pushed for bills to allow these Somalians to send more money to Somalia. This money that the Somalians are generating are from fraud, is from fraudulent schemes. Let's look at the daycare centers that just got uncovered. The healthcare fraud, making millions, and those millions are being sent to Somalia. So basically, in this upcoming governor's race in Minnesota, we have a Republican rhino versus a Democrat, Amy Klobuchar progressive, who allows this fraud to continue happening. So this upcoming election cycle, it's going to be very interesting to see. Now, Klobuchar has the advantage. She has crap ton of money piled up for this election based off her previous elections, her lobbying. I know Klobuchar is backed up by AIPAC and big name donors. And like I said, Minnesota is a progressively blue state, as the 7 Twin City counties are usually deep blue, and those counties make up at least 50% of the overall vote. Like I just exposed, Klobuchar has a long history of supporting the Somali fraud. It'll be interesting to see how this race turns out. I would personally favor a red leaning state versus a candidate like Klobuchar. I myself, as a rural Minnesotan, feel like I'm not 100% represented when it comes to these elections due to, like I said, the urban areas making up the vast majority of the votes. That being said, I want to encourage Minnesotans to come out and vote this November. Every vote counts. Hopefully we can get a candidate that will actually take on the Somali fraud and the illegal immigration that is costing our state millions as well. And that being said, I will end it here. In our next video, I want to discuss the Senate race in Minnesota, Michele Tafoya versus Peggy Flanagan. Regardless of what happens, I feel like it'll be a very interesting race. Thank you guys for watching. As always, Mr.LavaLamp out.